moderating and hosting our fireside chat is our own Andrew Mina. Andrew was a former member of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission staff. He is a superstar in our energy practice, and he's one of the nation's leading attorneys on data center development and related transactions. So Andrew, I'm going to let you take over, and we're running a little bit late. If we can go for about 30 minutes till just about 2:30, it'd be great.
Thank you, Clint. Appreciate that. And good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see you all. Hope you're enjoying the summit. Glad you could join us today. As Clint mentioned, I'm Andrew Mina. I'm a partner in Dentons Energy Practice here in DC. And I'm really excited to have the opportunity today to talk about an important issue and one that I care about a lot, which is energy challenges facing tech companies. You know, as we all know, data centers are the backbone of the digital economy, providing critical technology and computing services to virtually every aspect of our society. And as reliance on these services grows, so does the need for reliable, affordable, and sustainable energy to power these data centers. And while the build-out of data centers across the U.S. presents enormous opportunity, there are a number of issues that tech companies are facing, as well as the energy industry at large, and being forced to really grapple with. So, for example, managing the explosive growth of AI, ensuring that there's sufficient generation, transmission, and distribution capacity to serve these data centers, as well as overall demand, how regulators are reconciling different and sometimes competing viewpoints on how large loads can best be served, and how to ensure reliability of the grid in light of new and growing load. And while data centers seem to command much attention from the energy industry lately, there are actually a number of related issues that merit, I think, really careful consideration, such as how to manage interconnection queues across the country, how to incentivize, finance, and deploy transmission and generation infrastructure throughout the country, and how to meet new load growth in light of clean and renewable energy mandates throughout the U.S. So joining me today are the real experts to talk about these issues, Molly Waters and Ray Fakhoury. Molly Waters is Senior Corporate Counsel of Microsoft Infrastructure Legal Affairs. As lead U.S. Energy Counsel for Microsoft, Molly advises on the Energy Data Center Nexus, bespoke procurement arrangements, and regulatory engagement policy. Molly has negotiated utility-scale carbon-free offtakes, including Microsoft's Crane Clean Energy Center, and previously served in similar roles at AWS. Molly began her career at A&O Sherman and Morgan Lewis, and she's a graduate of the University of Michigan Law School and the University of Minnesota. Ray Fakhoury is based in Washington, D.C. He leads AWS advocacy to expand access to carbon-free energy in the East and on Capitol Hill. Ray previously held senior legislative and regulatory roles at Pattern Energy and Advanced Energy United, and holds a BA in political science from UC Santa Barbara. So really appreciate you both joining us today. So I want to open the discussion with maybe sort of the natural starting point is, you know, for this topic, which is data center demand, right, and load growth. You know, can you talk to us a little bit about AI growth, you know, machine learning workloads, traditional cloud storage services, and how that affects your thinking on the magnitude and the timing of your data center expansion plans? So Molly, can we start with you?
Sure. Thanks so much, Andrew, and really appreciate the Dentons team having me here today. As Clint mentioned, I feel like everyone's been talking about us today. The 800-pound gorillas have been given the microphones, so watch out. Just kidding. So you know, when we think about demand growth, I think back to what Llewellyn said this morning about the essentiality of electricity. We think of electricity as the raw ingredients to the cloud and to data centers and AI. The energy goes in, the output comes out, and that's what you see in your day-to-day life. That's how AI training models get run. That's how we do all of the things that we talk about AI doing. It's all requires electricity. So we have to build where electricity is. You know, we respond to our customers. We look for what our customers are looking for: latency, data sovereignty, data security, all of the kind of customer needs. And then we get to electricity, and then those magical few parcels that have meet all of our requirements, all of our customer requirements, have electricity, generation, transmission, distribution, and we go and build there. So when we think about whether it's an AI training load, whether it's a general cloud customer, whether it's a lot of it are government cloud customers have specific requirements too. So we have to meet all of these different demands. And then we think about, okay, where are those places that we can do that? And we go try to build there. We partner really closely. You'll hear me talk about this a lot today. We partner really closely with our utilities. We can't do any of the cloud growth, AI, et cetera, without our utility partners, without our regulators, without local communities, whether it's the city, states, or even, federal governments. We need all of those. It's really like a team effort to do all of that. And so we work really closely with a lot of those partners when we determine where we're going and what we're building where we are, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's well put. I think the other piece to this is there's a cost to going slow, right? So we talk about the cost of building and stranded assets. What I can tell you is that we are actually facing the other side of this coin where we're often well delayed from when energization dates have been signed and agreed upon, which puts us at a disadvantage to meeting our customers' obligations and requirements. So right now, what we're really looking at is, how do we supercharge the investment opportunities that we kind of missed for the last few years? And the reason why you see places like Northern Virginia, at least for the Amazon footprint, Northern Virginia, Ohio, Washington State, Oregon really accelerate is that they were the ones that had the excess capacity to start with, right? So one of the challenges that we're seeing is that excess capacity is really dried out. And whether it's, because of the fact that speculation, what have you, the reality of the situation is that we're making these investments, paying our full cost of service, yet we're still seeing these delays. And what we are trying to figure out is how do we work together with our utility partners to continue providing them with the certainty that they need in order to continue building, right? So it's the speed to market play. And so ultimately, from our standpoint, why we're going fast is because we have an abundant amount of customer demand. And a fun, just little personal anecdote, I think the latest average was that most US households have about 22 connected devices that they're using at all times. And that's just for residential use. We're not even talking about, small commercial businesses, industrial folks that are starting to shift a lot of their workloads from being on-premise stored to being on the cloud stored, or automating their facilities in order to provide more immediate responses to their customers. So as these businesses find efficiencies to be able to grow and expand, they're relying on folks like us to be able to meet their demand. So I think a lot of this is, we're all really dealing with the scar tissue of the offshoring of manufacturing still. And what we're trying to do is provide folks with this ability to see that the demand is real, and ultimately that we can work together on creative solutions to bring about this demand growth.
So you both talked about some of the challenges that I think have kind of been in the public for quite a while, common challenges. But given that you're both on the ground doing this work day to day, what do you think folks who are not in the data center industry would be surprised by? What challenges do you think that you face would surprise people like that?
I could go first, Molly. And this one we tend to not think about it. We also have the same struggles despite our market capitals that small commercial businesses do, right? Like, money isn't the situation that's going to alleviate the challenges of constrained interconnection queues, supply chain constraints, right? So we're also experiencing that. So a lot of the conversation revolves around, well, you guys are the largest companies in the world, just pay for it, just do it yourselves. I think ultimately the challenge that we're facing is, well, we're trying, right? We have regulatory barriers that prevent us from being helpful, right? For example, Amazon has the ability to be able to go out and procure 50, 100 substations and deploy those in all the areas where we know we're going. However, many utility service territories prevent us from being able to bring our own substations. And we're probably able to do it a lot more cost effectively, not because of any shortcomings on the utility standpoint, but they have to buy substation by substation, right? They have to go before their commission and get it approved. They have to go through a CPCN filing. And then at that point, once they've gotten a deposit from the customer, can they put a deposit down? On our standpoint, we know the exact same manufacturers and substation folks that they're working with, and can just go ahead and put down a deposit for that 50. And that certainty for the manufacturer of these components will be able to then turn around and say, well, I know that they're not going anywhere. They're not subject to rejection from their state commission. So I think those are just areas that folks tend to think that, hey, you just throw money at it. And ultimately, it's not a money problem. And Molly, if I could add one more, just on backup diesel generators, like we have those for emergencies. We don't want to run those facilities because I know for a fact the minute that one of those facilities fires on, I'm going to get a call from the sheriff's station saying, so-and-so constituent is now really upset that this loud emissions heavy facility is now running. So we want to reserve those for emergency purposes as we start investing in technologies like long duration storage and other resources to help with the flexibility. But ultimately, the idea of just running generators 24/7 it's harms our community relations, I think, at the end of the day.
Thanks, Ray. I agree. It harms our community relationships and our sustainability goals. Nobody really wants diesel gens run in their neighborhood or, close by to them. But I think one of the kind of challenges that the industry, in particular around energy, has had is talking about data centers and what we do. One of the things that, there are a lot of common misconceptions. What are data centers? They house cat videos. ChatGPT helps high schoolers write their essays. It's actually so much more than that. And I think, when people don't want data centers in their communities, it's because I don't think they always understand the good that data centers do. Our data centers, also people interact with data centers a lot more than they think. Everyone has a phone in their pocket. It's all lawyers, so you're running Outlook. You've probably bought something from Amazon on your mobile phone, maybe even today. And we don't show that kind of intense importance of data centers, but it's a lot more than that. It's first responders, it's hospitals. AI programs are run to accelerate medical research, really do breakthroughs in data science. And we don't do a good job of, people see these big boxes, but they don't see the rest of what comes out of them. And we could do a better job as an industry, and Microsoft's partnering with the Data Center Coalition to help educate some state regulators at NARUC this fall. And so we're really excited about partnering with NARUC and the Data Center Coalition to say, here is what data centers do. Here's why they're important. Here's how they're designed. Here's why, here's what would happen if we ran our diesel gens. Here's, if you interrupt us or if we're interrupted, my Outlook goes down. Oh no, I can't send some emails. But if, a first responder's critical IT infrastructure is down, that has huge consequences. So educating some of the decision makers, policy makers, so that we can more effectively collaborate. And when we are in this kind of rapidly changing regulatory environment, we have so much more opportunities for collaboration if we're all on the same page. And so we're really excited. If you're at NARUC in the fall, come see some Microsoft people. There's great programming on what data centers are, what they're not, what they can do, what they can't do, how we use energy, how we design data centers, all of these programs so that we can all be on the same page and collaborate more effectively.
Well, you both talked about diesel generation, but I want to take a step back and maybe talk about generation more broadly. Obviously, with additional load growth and the tremendous generation capacity that's needed, we need new generation assets to be deployed, right? So from your perspective, how are large energy purchasers thinking about sourcing generation, whether it's through bring your own generation, which is a hot topic now, whether it's utility partnerships, other solutions. Can you walk through your thinking on some of that?
Our primarily so far, and I say so far because we have a lot of things going on, our renewable procurement program has been a huge source of generation and bringing new generation online. Microsoft has sustainability and carbon-free energy goals, and we use our virtual power purchase agreements to do that. When it comes to delivering electrons to our data centers so that we can do all of the cool things that you can do on Azure and through AI, Copilot, I would recommend for all of you. So when we do that, we really have to partner with our utilities. They, like I said before, they're key partners for everything that we do to keep the lights on, the GPUs running, the CPUs running, everything running at our data centers are so reliant on our utility partners. When it comes to specifically to generation, We have recently in Wisconsin, we have a huge site under development in Wisconsin where we partnered with our utility on what we called a very large customer tariff. They don't do industry-specific tariffs, so we are very large customers. We have a couple of other data centers in the area, and we formed this tariff really to allow us to fund the utilities build of new generation to serve our load. So that helps insulate other ratepayers from the cost of generation built to serve our data centers, and it allows the utility to expand the speed to market, ability to expand their base load and other generation sources so that we can grow in that territory, and we can grow in that territory fast. We also think about generation beyond just infrastructure. So one of the, Microsoft has partnered with Idaho National Labs on a NRC Nuclear Regulatory Commission licensing project where we are using AI solutions to speed the permitting process for new generation to come online. So it's a really cool program that we've done with the Idaho National Labs, and it will both cut down on the people power and time used to get those licenses approved and the overall time span that for those licenses that can otherwise take years to get approved.
Yeah, and some of those applications are like 4,000 pages, so really helpful. Like Molly, AWS also has a climate goal. It's our climate pledge, which is net zero by 2040. Earlier this year, late last year, we actually announced that we had met our original renewable energy match goal of 100% renewable energy matched for all of our operations, making us the largest corporate purchaser of renewable energy resources. So more than 600 projects are currently in our portfolio. We continue to expand that. I think our vision now is starting to shift towards more carbon-free solutions. So also last year, we announced a agreement with Talon Energy to provide them with a power purchase agreement for the Susquehanna nuclear facility. Big year last year, apparently. We also did an equity investment in a small modular nuclear reactor company called X Energy to bring about 5 gigawatts of small modular nuclear reactors to the market by 2039. Now, that's a bit different than your typical, right? Usually it's a PPA arrangement, which is if you bring it, then we will buy. With this approach, it's we want to bring it together. And so we're using a lot of the best practices that we're learning, kind of embedding ourselves in with X Energy to help drive down the cost of bringing on these resources. And associated with that announcement with X, we also are deploying 320 megawatts in Washington State at the Columbia Nuclear Generating Station. So there's a lot of really exciting things that we can do on this shielding ratepayers, right? Because we think ultimately there is a benefit to these resources coming online at the front of the meter so that we can, rising tides lifts all boats. It further fortifies the grid. So ultimately, the arrangement that we have with Energy Northwest, which is a public power utility, is that we will cost share 50%. We will take on the cost of bringing an application to the NRC, and we'll have first dibs at 50% of that power. The other 50% is up to the public power utilities of Washington to bring before their regulator and their members to then determine whether or not it's in their best public interest and is cost effective and is able to be integrated into their onto their wires. And if they deem that is the case, great. They'll enter into arrangement. They'll get 50% of the other offtake. If not, then we would be subject to carrying the rest of the costs. So ultimately, again, protecting those so long as there isn't benefits or found to be benefits. So I think there's a lot of creative solutions we can do on this shielding of ratepayers, because ultimately, once you get these projects out into the grid, it ultimately will drive down the learning curve for all other future developments.
So to get generation to your facilities, you need transmission, right? And that's another issue that many parts of the country are grappling with, a lack of transmission capacity, transmission constraints, particularly in areas that are optimal for data centers, right? So how are you all approaching those challenges in terms of that lack of transmission available to get generation to your facilities? Do you do direct investments? Do you do partnerships, other solutions? Can you walk us through how you're solving for that problem?
Sure. I'm going to say the same thing I've said before, which is we rely heavily on our utility partners. And Ray touched on an important point for us is whether it's generation or transmission or distribution, Microsoft aims to bear the cost to serve its facilities. And so we tend to like to partner with our utilities because, like Ray said, Microsoft funds a distribution line that helps resiliency and reliability for other partners in the area. We've talked a little bit about load forecasting today too. One of the things that we've been trying to implement or trying to really help our utility partners is with that load forecast accuracy, and then advocating for large load participants or considerations at higher levels of that load forecasting too. So whether it's, being involved in some of the ISO RTO planning to make sure that our load is accurately forecast. So when transmission is built, it's accurately reflecting what we think is going to show up.
Yeah, agreed. I think there's a short, medium, and long-term kind of vision here because Commissioner Chang really highlighted it well. We have to be able to do more with what we have, right? Reconductoring and grid-enhancing technology should be top of mind for the next 2 to 4 years, especially if we can create some policy around accelerating the timelines for the utilities where they don't have to go back through environmental reviews for just reconductoring lines. They already have the right of way, so allowing them to be able to quickly move and deploy those resources. I think ultimately another area here where the challenge will ultimately be the opportunity is integrating AI into a lot of these forecasts, into transmission planning, and having AI be a tool to serve our utility partners. Another struggle for us there is that for many utilities across the country, there isn't a proper treatment for investing in these software services because it's treated as an operating expense, not a capital expense, right? And we, I'll let the utilities speak for that on their own, but at the end of the day, figuring out a way to make it an incentive for our utility partners to integrate these resources and technologies on their side of the house, I think would also go a really far way in helping transmission planning.
So Ray, earlier you talked about Amazon's, climate goals, sustainability goals. I want to just pause on that for a second. Beyond virtual PPAs for wind and solar, how are you both investing in clean energy technologies? What are the most promising, technology solutions that you're deploying on your system or, even investigating as potential options for you?
Absolutely. So everything's on the table. I think we're looking at beyond just the equity investment with X Energy to bring about those small modular reactors. We're also investing with Talon Energy at the Susquehanna nuclear facility, and then looking at all other resources from energy storage to geothermal and beyond. But ultimately, we think about it as a portfolio approach. And just going back to your previous question, Andrew, you talked about bring your own gen, which I think is a good option. And we'd love to see it be an option. But the reality is we want to make sure that, back to what Molly said, that there's no different treatment on customers based on what type of customer they are, right? So if there is a mandate or a requirement to bring your own generation just simply to get a line, that's going to be a really challenging dynamic for creating two different markets for different customers at PJM or at other places that aren't PJM that are proposing something like this. So ultimately, I think having bring your own gen be something that is a carrot and not a stick would certainly be helpful for us on our side who are investing in these resources and trying to bring about the next generation of clean energy, carbon-free energy resources.
Ray talked about Talon. We have Crane Clean Energy, so all the big tech companies have their own nuclear plant now. So we signed a PPA last year for the Crane Clean Energy Center, formerly known as 3 Mile Island. I wanted the press release to say, "Don't worry, it's the other reactor," but that was rejected. So that's a 850 megawatt repower. So that was taken offline in 2020, a few years ago. I apologize, I forget the exact year, but it's new, clean, firm generation in PJM. It's kind of what we all hope for, and it's worth the price that we pay for it because it brings on new, clean, firm in a generation constrained region. So we are super excited about that. We were some of my government affairs colleagues were in Pennsylvania earlier in the summer with Governor Shapiro touring the facility. It's coming along. We are really excited about that. Much like AWS, we've also are partnering with more first of its kind clean energy partners. So we have an agreement with Helion to purchase output from their first fusion reactor, which I believe started construction this summer. And then in addition, we're also working with other kind of seemingly competitors on ways to accelerate the commercialization and scalability of some of these first-of-their-kind technology as well. We partnered with Google and Nucor on an advanced market economy program where we are aggregating the demand of Google, Nucor, and Microsoft in a way that will help commercialize and scale new clean energy technologies so that they can get the financing, they can get the capital that they need to build these technologies, bring them online, scale them, and make them more affordable for everyone.
So what policy changes could make it easier for data centers to access clean energy at scale? To the extent you all are working on those or you have thoughts about them, I mean, are there big ticket items or low-hanging fruit that we could pursue in order to make sure we get more of those renewable assets online?
How much time you got?
We just got the times up.
We have 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of low-hanging fruit, I think, like a nationwide policy on reconductoring. It would be a really easy one. Ensuring that grid-enhancing technologies are considered before heavier network upgrades, right? Or even simply allowing third-party vendors to be able to do these network upgrades. I think oftentimes there are challenges because of reliability concerns, despite the fact that we have examples from across the country where many of these third-party vendors that are bringing these technological advancements to the grid are operating well. I know we talked about siting and NEPA. I think that will be critical for transmission development and growth. And then making sure that we have proper cost allocation principles so that there is interregional, once again, I think there's some challenges to how we've been building transmission across multiple states and jurisdictions. So trying to figure out a way to clean that up would also be helpful.
And just one quick thing to add to what Ray said, I think regulatory certainty and durability of any sort of policy changes is also going to be key. You know, we are spending billions of dollars as each of our companies on data centers, on these investments, and we would like to make sure that we can realize those investments. And so any sort of policy changes and regulatory uncertainty needs to be resolved in a durable way.
So we're just about at time, so I want to have one more question. Looking forward, what are your personal top 2 or 3 priorities to enable data center growth? Where do you see this industry growing? You know, how can you facilitate, you know, all of the things that we need to get this growth met, customers served, and society served at large with respect to their cat videos and their Instagram and social media? What are the top 2, 3 priorities that you think would enable data center growth going forward?
So one is not a priority, but it's something that I'm focusing on. Or sorry, it's not a policy, but it's something I'm focusing on. We spend a lot of time talking about the challenges, and we haven't really spent a lot of time talking about solutions, right? So I think for the last few years, it's been, this load is coming, it's too big, there's really nothing we can do about it. So shifting into more problem solving and engagement on being creative with the solutions and getting to yes. I think I will always default back to transmission because prior to joining AWS, I worked as a transmission developer. And so the project that I worked on could now drive and I don't think is even eligible to rent a car. Like it's 18 years in the making, which is way too long for merchant transmission development. But ultimately, I think we have to figure out a way to accelerate the deployment of transmission resources, either by bringing them to parity with the way that pipelines are considered, or ensuring that there's an incentive that the states are obligated to kind of work together with transmission developers. And then I'll just close out with, I think load interconnection is certainly something, and forecasting needs to be a part of the conversation because across the country, every utility studies projects differently. So you get these really big lofty numbers of 100 gigawatt load interconnection in fill in the blank state, which is really great for Wall Street. And that's why these numbers come out the way that they are and that big. And then you kind of look through into what's actually in the queue, and it's, you know, maybe 30 megawatts that have actually been studied beyond just an engineering request, or 30 gigawatts, sorry. So I think figuring out a way to standardize that process or bring additional kind of transparency into the interconnection of load would certainly be really helpful.
I think that we need to do a little bit better of a job of selling the benefits of our industry. You know, every place we go, there's opposition to data centers, and people don't want AI. AI is scary. It's change. There's so much change happening in the economy. There's so much change happening in the world, and we're a part of that. And I think that if we could do a better job, not only just from an energy perspective, people see energy as my electric bill is going up. There is a data center next door to me. I'm going to connect those things. It's a nuanced and complicated answer as to whether that's actually true or not. And we as an industry and we as a company, I think, need to do a much better job of selling the distribution line that Microsoft funds is increasing reliability for everybody. We're not, we are building new solar resources so that coal can be retired. All of these things that we're doing, we talk about a lot in places like this, but what shows up in the New York Times, the Washington Post, et cetera, is data centers are causing energy energy bills to go up, coal to stay online, and water to be depleted. And we need to do a better job of having answers for that and selling the good things that we do for the world.
Well, I just want to thank you both for speaking with us today. I really appreciate your time and insights. Round of applause for our speakers.